Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Canadian Prairie. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, the temperature forecast is a bit split down the middle here as we talk about the next 10 days. The good news is it's warmer than average now, and that continues through the work week. The bad news is I do have to make you aware we're watching a temperature change or a pattern change here that's going to bring in some cooler temperatures once again to the region, not until we get to about the February 2nd or 3rd time frame. So still 5 to 6 days of January warmth to enjoy here across the prairie. Most regions here seeing temperatures, at least in the afternoons, reaching positive territory, getting above freezing, but again, that will come to an end once we get around the February 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time range. And we have to talk about the opportunity for just about everyone to pick up at least a little bit of accumulating snow, but the timing on that is going to be different depending on where you reside. As we talk about the next 4 or 5 days in the shorter term, I'm more concerned about central and southern portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. As we get into the weekend and early next week, that's when I start to become more concerned about snow accumulating here across parts of central, southern, and even western portions of Alberta. Now, as we get the day started, taking a look at the satellite picture here, we've got mostly cloudy skies across portions of Saskatchewan, some clouds across southern Alberta coming off of the mountains there as well. There are some pockets of clear skies you can find here, though, across northern and western Alberta. Also looks like we could have some clear skies across parts of southern Manitoba as well this morning. Talking about not much in the way of precipitation here for the day today. As we look at the radar here on Monday morning, maybe some snow flurries here across near the U.S. border here in far southeastern Alberta into southwestern Saskatchewan, and maybe some light snow flurries here in the higher elevations of western and northern Alberta. So we talk about the short-term forecast, not talking about much in the way of accumulating snow over the next 24 hours. Again, perhaps some light flurries here across southern portions of Saskatchewan as we head through the overnight tonight and then into the day on Tuesday. Now, we'll talk about the jet stream pattern here and why this change is going to be happening. As we look at the pattern right now, very disorganized. As we look at Canada and the United States here, you can see a corridor of very strong jet stream winds coming in across the Pacific. You see another corridor of very strong jet stream winds here across Greenland. We're south of Greenland here across the northern Atlantic. But again, very disorganized here across the U.S. and across Canada, and that is leading to a quieter pattern across this region. As we take this into the next 4 to 5 days, though, we're going to start to watch things change. Let me go ahead and jump back here. We can scroll through time watching the upper levels of the atmosphere. We're looking at 500 millibars, but starting with the jet stream and working our way down to the surface. Now, as we go through the next 4 to 5 days, again into the middle part of the work week, the pattern, again, continuing to deflect storm systems off to the south. So the trajectory right now is kind of digging storm systems in here across parts of the southern plains of the United States, keeping things dry. As we head into midweek, we'll start once again blasting these strong jet stream winds into the Pacific coast, into British Columbia, bringing precipitation first to that region. We'll see some of these storm systems here, a couple clipper systems, make their way up and over the top of the Rockies, and that is what brings the chance for some accumulating snow here to parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Now, it's not until we get into the end of the weekend, into early next week, we start to build what could be a more significant trough that makes its way across the coast here, digging into the Rockies, and that's what brings the potential for the pattern change here as we see this bigger trough dug out by the jet stream. That allows cooler air to once again sink south into the region here, parts of the prairie, and getting into the western half of the United States. Now, as we talk about precipitation, this will kind of show the pattern. I'll play the precipitation forecast over the next week, looking at the U.S. and Canada here from the European long-range model. And again, as you just kind of watch this loop, I'll let it continue to play. You see first the precipitation stacking up in this area. A couple of waves here as we get into mid to late parts of the work week. Here's Wednesday, getting into Friday, and now the weekend into early next week. That's when you see it fill in right here. Just watch it play here. First, we're focusing on central and southern Saskatchewan into southern Manitoba. And then as we get into, now we're here Saturday, Monday, getting into the early part of next week. We'll talk about this here, looking at the precipitation forecast. This will make a little bit more sense to us intuitively. As we go ahead and jump back here to the beginning of the week, heading through the day on Tuesday. Again, that chance for some very light snow flurries across southern portions and central portions of Saskatchewan. Very light snow, maybe a light coating or light dusting up to a centimeter or two, not talking about significant snow. This same wave meanders into southern and central Manitoba as we get into the day on Wednesday. So that's our first shot here, Tuesday into Wednesday, of central and southern Saskatchewan, picking up a very light dusting of snow in central and southern Manitoba as well. We watch the next wave make its way over here, see a much stronger area of low pressure well north of the Prairie, but again, a little front extending south of that, a little perturbation within the jet stream. Chance for some very light snow, again, as we talk about Thursday night, getting into Friday across central and southern portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Now we're going to start to ramp things up, though. This is when we see the jet stream get excited again and begin moving ashore. We see the pattern beginning to shift east. This allows more significant snow to start making its way into parts of the Prairie. The timing, the details, the actual amounts here are going to differ, but what is clear is that it looks like once we get into the weekend and early next week, that's when a more widespread portion of the Prairie starts to see the opportunity for some accumulating snow. How much, when the exact timing is, that's something we'll have to talk about more on Wednesday and then especially on Friday as we talk about the Canadian Prairie. But here are some early amounts, looking at 3 different models: the European model on the top left, the American GFS model on the top right, and then the Canadian model here in the bottom. First thing that jumps out to you, what is going on here across central portions of Manitoba? The Canadian model much more gung-ho with the storm system that comes in the day 6-7 time frame. I'm talking about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday next week when that pattern change happens. That's what brings in the snow here to a more widespread portion of the Prairie. All the models have this here, but it's as the storm system deepens here that the Canadian model wants to go really intense with this thing and drop a significant amount of snow. No agreement from that or with that as we talk about the GFS or the European model. So again, that's where I talk about some disagreements here and some of the specifics needing to be honed in on. If we just kind of look at some of the cities here and I give you kind of my best guess on snowfall over the next week, Calgary, probably between 5 to 15 centimeters. Big uncertainty there because most of that snow doesn't come until we get to the weekend and early next week. So a big range there that we need to sort out. But it'll be dry for the most part as we talk about the main work week. That potential for 5 to 15 centimeters largely looms over the weekend and early next week. Medicine Hat, very similar. The potential for the snow, not really until we get to the day 5, 6, 7 time frame in this forecast. 4 to 8 centimeters seems like a good ballpark at this point, but that's an early guess. Edmonton, 10 to 15 centimeters. There's a potential for more there. But again, talking about most of that coming 5 to 6 to 7 days out into the future, very uncomfortable giving specific amounts of that range. Saskatoon, a little more confidence there because of some of that snow falls here Wednesday and Friday, 4 to 8 centimeters possible there. Regina, same, 4 to 8 centimeters. And then Winnipeg, talking about 3 to 6 centimeters of snow. Again, most of that coming as we talk about the opportunities here Wednesday into Friday, mid to late this week. Big uncertainty, obviously, for Winnipeg here as we talk about the Canadian model, trying to get gung-ho with that storm system as we get into early next week, but we have plenty of time to talk about that between now and then. Temperature anomaly forecast here as we take it through the week, continuing to be warmer than average as we get through the weekend. Remember that change comes as we get into early next week. February 2nd, February 3rd, right around then, we'll be watching for a likely transition back to a cooler air mass across the region. So the forecast for Calgary over the next 10 days, looking at high temperatures between 3 and 8 degrees, climbing as we head into the late part of the week, but then there's that cold front, the regime change here, high temperatures once again below freezing as we get into the beginning of next week, end of the weekend. Edmonton, same thing, flirting with a few degrees above average, above zero. As we head through the work week, that cool down comes on the backside of the weekend. Very similar picture here in Saskatoon, Regina, and then Winnipeg, a little bit more of a roller coaster ride here, climbing up from a high of -8 today, getting into positive territory as we approach the weekend, and the bottom falling out here as we get into February 2nd through the 4th. As always, if you're curious about the large-scale changes here over the next 1 to 2 weeks, Eric Snodgrass has our long-range ag forecast available on the portal today. Head to my.nutrienagsolutions.com. You can view that there. I will be back to talk about the Canadian Prairie once again on Wednesday, where we can kind of hope to diagnose the potential for some more significant snow early next week and a transition back to a cooler pattern. Have a great day and a wonderful start to your week.